Welcome back to News All Day. Thanks so much for staying with us as we take a look outside. A Utah prosecutor says he will ask for the death penalty in the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at Utah Valley University last week, and 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was charged with 7 counts, including aggravated murder.
Also, following the press conference, I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently as county attorney, based solely on the available evidence and circumstances and nature of the crime.
And joining me now to discuss this is criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland. Jeremy, good to see you. Utah, the state charge of aggravated murder carries the possibility of the death penalty, as you heard there. Even still, is it unusual to be seeking the death penalty like this?
Well, aggravated murder in Utah has specific enhancements, if you will, that elevate it to a charge. You can get capital punishment. One of those is that you are putting others in great danger when you're perpetrating this alleged homicide and you're killing another person. So that is where they're elevating it. For example, you could have done it, or they could have done it if it was a police officer, which is more common, you might see. But this was putting others potentially in danger, and that great risk of danger, which is specified in the aggravated murder statute in Utah to allow potentially for the capital punishment.
It is unclear if Robinson will face any federal charges. If he does, how would that change the nature of this case?
You know, I don't think it would change the nature, and it doesn't seem like this is an appropriate charge for the federal government to weigh into or to go. This was solely an internal, if you will, state case on state grounds, someone within the state, no interstate commerce or no interstate actions or anything like that. I don't see it going that route. This is the full force of the law in Utah, which is a conservative state where, the evidence is strong, and there is that real possibility that if he's convicted, the death penalty is something that happens.
Let's talk about some of the evidence that we are hearing, those recent court documents revealing his text messages to his romantic partner, and of course, the allegations of this being a politically motivated killing. How do you see that all playing out in court in terms of the argument that's going to be made here?
One of the enhancements they use is that that Robinson was going after Kirk because there's a perception of Kirk's political views and who he was. So there may be some relevancy in terms of that enhancement. It's frightening, though, because we don't want to see it become political in the sense of this labeling of trans people or people related to trans and things like that being the culprits. This has nothing to do with that other than there's somebody, meaning Robinson, who allegedly had strong feelings about what he heard from Kirk. Now, let's be very clear, no matter what they were, if true, no one has a right to kill another person, period. There's no asterisk there. But you hope that a lot of the politics, or all of the politics, other than that's what's necessary for the elements of the crime, are left out of that courtroom.
Jeremy, I just want to switch gears to the latest in the Luigi Mangione case, of course, another high-profile case here in Manhattan. As you know, the judge yesterday threw out the state terrorism charges against Mangione in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Still facing a second-degree murder charge in New York, also faces the federal charges. Talk to us about why the state terrorism charge was dropped here. The judge saying that his decisions were based on the law.
Yeah, I think Judge Carroll was right on. Out of the outset, I think this was an appropriate murder 2 charge, inappropriate for the federal government to get involved at all, but a state charge. But what was tried to be done was to say that Mangione took this action to intimidate either the civilian population of New York, or alternatively to coerce New York and others, government agencies, to act in a certain way or not act in a certain way. This may have been motivated by Mangione's desire to send a message. Don't get me wrong, that may be true in terms of healthcare and targeting, but it would overly expand what the definition of terrorism is and how we perceive terrorism and what terrorism means to other people. That's opening up a huge floodgate, and I think the judge was correct in determining that it was not appropriate. Murder 2 was still a very significant charge. And I think that this was an overcharge by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. So I think the case is going to proceed as it should on that murder 2. And ultimately, the death penalty, whether that can happen, can't happen in New York regardless in terms of the state. But the feds can pursue it whether or not they'd be successful.
All right, Jeremy Slane, good to talk to you. Thanks for your analysis.
My pleasure.